Hi, everyone. Welcome. Happy Tuesday. My name is Rolisha Pena. I'm the Assistant Director for Career and Management Office at the Columbia School of Social Work. I am joined here by the clinical staff of the Yale Child Study Center, and they're here to discuss their upcoming application period for their clinical fellowship and everything to do with that fellowship. So that's why you're here. And I will have the Yale team lead the session.
Hi, thank you so much. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming to the session. I'm going to just introduce myself. My name is Bridget Torres. I'm a clinician at the Yale Child Study Center, and I was a fellow a few years ago, and also a CSSW grad. And then I'm going to have Carolina introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carolina Rivera Parrott, and I am the director of the social work training program here. And I am also a clinician and supervisor here for the outpatient clinic. So I'm excited to be with you all and to be able to share a little bit about our program and answer any questions you might have. Thank you. And I will have Hector introduce himself.
Hi everyone, my name is Hector Chaides Ruacho, and I was a fellow in the 2020 to 2022 kind of phase. I actually just recently graduated from the fellowship this past summer. Right now, I'm currently an outpatient clinician.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Salazar. I actually graduated from Columbia last year. Was it last year? I forget. Time goes by fast. And I'm the first year ICAPS fellow.
Thank you so much for being here. So the first piece we're going to go into is just introducing the fellowship program, and we'll let you know a little bit more about the curriculum here, the expectations. And then Hector and Stephanie are going to share about their experiences as fellows. Carolina, would you like to start off describing the fellowship a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the fellowship is a 2-year advanced training program here at the Child Study Center. We provide advanced training opportunities to those who are admitted to the program, and we're grounded here at the Yale Child Study Center. We're committed to working and creating an anti-oppressive environment here and while fostering knowledge and awareness and developing clinical skills. And so deepening clinical skills within the social workers who come here for this program specifically. We do participate in the social work fellowship is a multidisciplinary specific training program. And so it includes didactics, intensive supervision, direct clinical practice as well with children individually, with families, and as well as with groups. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about our 2 tracks. There are 2 tracks in our fellowship, and those are the outpatient program track, which is the one that Hector is going to talk about his own experience in. And then we also have the ICAPS track. And we have Stephanie who's going to be able to talk about her experience as a fellow in the ICAPS track as well. And so that's our program in like a broad sense. And we also have a lot of information about more specific pieces of our program on our website as well. But I just gave an overview of our program. I will share my screen.
With child development, it's really only the last 100 years that we truly understand the importance of both our genes and then our environment and the effect of those on mental health. And that has allowed us to develop treatment so that a kid can develop according to their best potential.
I like to think of child development as kind of the building blocks of who the child will grow to be. Development has such a huge impact on how they experience their environment or experience relationships with other people.
Families are overall affected by how a child is coming up. So being able to provide that security and that foundation for children to become well adjusted is very important.
We know so much about typical child development, what can interrupt it, with that understanding, we're not only able to help in the moment, we're also able to help future generations.
When we have a child come in, we're thinking not just about the child, but about the parent also. And knowing that a parent who's held and supported is going to be better able to hold and support their child and meet the needs of their child.
I feel really fortunate and privileged to have some skills and tools and experience to be able to make a difference for those kids and families. It gives me a lot of hope and optimism. And, you know, I try to convey that to the families that we work with, that there's a lot of opportunity here for resilience. On the one hand, there are clinical interventions here that are cutting edge, world class, some of the innovators, but that couldn't happen if we didn't have such rich basic science.
I think there's several benefits of being in an academic medical center where research are here. You have the opportunity to collaborate with many different groups from both here and around the world. That experience also translates down clinically.
Having that influence of science makes us think about how the science impacts our clinical work.
We have such a fantastic team of dedicated individuals who really, truly care about the integration of the art and science of psychotherapy and really seek to make a difference.
There's always this community of challenging each other. Everyone's always motivated to learn from each other.
Treatment philosophy is geared to enhance and maximize the child's potential.
I'm not just delivering a goal of treatment, I'm really assessing what is best for the family right now. I think that's a very unique piece of a child study center.
That's some information about the Child Study Center and where we are here, located at the center, the Yale Child Study Center. And so thank you for viewing that video with us. And now, Bridget, I'm thinking we can go into talking a little bit about the specific tracks that we offer within the fellowship.
Yes. I can introduce the ICAPS track. Okay. So this is ICAPS, or it's our Intensive In-Home Child and Adolescent Psychiatric Services program. It is an in-home program that was actually developed here at the Yale Child Study Center, now at this point upwards of 20 years ago. And it's a really unique program. It is a 6-month long, we work with each family for 6 months in teams. So you will have a clinical partner, and you carry 5 cases, which is a pretty small caseload, but the cases are quite intense, and it is intensive. So you meet with the family 3 times per week for individual parent and family treatment, and services are all provided within the family's home. So in order to do this track, you do need to have a driver's license as well as access to a car. As it says here, treatment is always provided by teams of 2 clinicians, and it provides a really unique opportunity to collaborate with providers both in the Child Study Center and within the community. And as part of the ICAPS program, you also will receive 1 hour of individual supervision and then up to 2 hours of team supervision, and that is with your partner every week. And all of those hours do count towards your licensure hours. The individual hours do count towards licensure hours. We are able to offer families a lot of different methods of treatment. Folks in ICAPS do play therapy, pull from CBT and DBT. And basically, it's a very eclectic way of working with families where we really try to meet families where they are at. And Steph, I think if you're open to kind of describing what a day might look like for an ICAPS fellow.
I am open. Hi everyone, again, my name is Stephanie. So yeah, I figured that I would just go ahead and give you the brief of my today to make it the most realistic, scenario. So I woke up around 8 a.m. and I had to be ready at 9 for mini teams. And so mini teams, fellows have it every Tuesday morning. And it's basically just observed testing for children under 5 through, you know, the one-way mirror that I'm sure a lot of you all are familiar with. And it's been nice seeing kind of like the whole process from the initial intake with parents down to the feedback at the very end. So we'll follow the family through the process with the young child's team. And as fellows, we also get to pick up a case later. So that'll be, I think, for us in January. And that's in addition to the 5 cases that Bridget was talking about. So that's really nice experience there too. And usually that's like 9 to 11, but today we had a diversity, equity, and inclusion meeting at 10, and that's centered around considerations for writing a clinical formulation. And that was good to be part of with other ICAPS teams or supervisors and other in-home clinicians. So yeah, then at 11, I did a couple of notes for my sessions yesterday that I didn't get to. I listened to some music, had that 1 hour break sort of. And then at 12, I went downstairs for CPP supervision. And so CPP stands for Child Parent Psychotherapy. And I know back in September, we had part of the things that, you know, Carolina was talking about is we had a training where with CPP training, and it's basically treatment to support families with young children under 6 who have experienced some really painful traumatic events, and that, you know, abuse, loss, separation, you name it. So we got trained for that back in September, and we will also be receiving weekly supervision for that. And we also get to pick up a case. So that's also, and that's in the center, like outpatient almost. So that's also really good experience there. And then, yeah, here I'm at 1. I'm here with you all, present and available to answer any questions. And for this latter of my day, it's usually, so I like, in ICAPS, I always think about it in like two separate things. So in the morning, I tend to do like fellowship in the clinic work, and then in the afternoon, I have my ICAPS cases. So I go out into the community. Usually the drive is not more than 15 minutes. Today, I only have 2 cases. Usually I'll have like 3 to 4. But today was more of like light day. So yeah, I leave usually evening sessions. So like for today example, I have one at 4 and then I have one at 5, usually about an hour each. And if I get to the notes for that day, I get to that. If I'm too tired, I don't do that, and I do other work up until 7. But yeah, that's what my Tuesday looks like. Some things though I do want to mention, some things that I didn't include in my Tuesday but are very common or that exist throughout the week. For example, there's a lot of collaboration between me, the provider, and then other service providers. So once you open a case with ICAPS, quite frankly, we really just infiltrate pretty much all communication that the family has with providers, healthcare providers, service providers, just, yeah, any of them. And 1, to be like, we're also now in the picture and we can advocate, but 2, just to be on the same page with everyone. So there's a lot of that goes on throughout the week, collaboration. I didn't talk about rounds, but that's usually on Thursdays. And I don't know if some of you all are, the closest thing I can relate it to is like case dispose that I had in some of my like in previous internships. There's also peer fellow supervision. We did talk a bit about peer supervision, and that's an hour a week with just you and your fellows to talk, debrief, plan, whatever it is you want, without faculty and without staff. So that time has been really nice to kind of just decompress throughout the week. But then we also have supervision. So like my Mondays, for example, are pretty heavy with supervision. I have 2 supervisors. That's just like me one-on-one, but I'm also part of 2 ICAPS teams, and those teams also get supervised. So that's already like 4 hours of supervision. So I'll give it to the fellowship. I cannot even say I wasn't supervised, because if I need access to, because I have access to just like input, opinions, and just answers of any kind if I need them. And it's all usually an email, text, or call away. So that's been really helpful. And yeah, other just trainings that I've also have been part of, but not necessarily for, what's the word I'm blanking. Like usually they're like 6 weeks, sometimes they're like 8 weeks, but we've done like psychopharmacology, we've done DBT, other learning great opportunities like Circle of Security seminars. And something, the last thing I'll add to this is that I really enjoy just the intimate space because it caters to fostering that relationship with like the people leading the training, and the people leading the trainings, one, work in the clinic, but two, are like experts in that field. So it's been really nice to be part of that and just form those relationships if you're open to it as a fellow. But yeah, that was a mouthful. Hope I gave a day in a life. I hope I did that well. But yeah, that is it.
Sorry. Thank you, Steph. Yeah, ICAPS is very busy. They're both very busy, but this is the one that I can speak to. And I think too, just to clarify, so we see in ICAPS, we see kids beginning at the age of 4 and going all the way up to 18. And I have, in my time, been here, had kids all the way from 4 to 18, every age range. So very diverse group of ages, very diverse group of presenting concerns too. If you look online, the ICAPS description will say like kids at risk of either being removed from their homes or kids that are or kids that have been psychiatrically hospitalized, but we see a huge range of kids with externalizing and internalizing concerns, and it's a very varied group. And Carolina, would you like to introduce OPC?
Yeah, absolutely. I also just wanted to clarify thank you so much, Bridget and Stephanie, for providing that really nice summary of ICAPS, and just Stephanie, your day as an ICAPS fellow. And so thank you. And I just wanted to clarify as well that for the housing question, there was a question about whether or not housing is provided to the fellow. Housing is not provided as far as we do not cover housing. The fellowship program does not provide funds for a fellow to cover their housing. So I just want to clarify that. We do provide a list of places to explore housing in the area, in the New Haven area. So that is we do provide options to look where to look for housing, but we do not cover the expenses of housing. So I just want to be clear about that. And so just to provide an overview about the outpatient clinic, and so I'll give a brief overview of what our clinic does. And so the outpatient clinic is the outpatient psychiatric clinic for children. We do start, so it's a little bit different than ICAPS, where we have young child services, and our young child services start at anywhere between, we usually say birth to like 3 years old. And so depending on what the child and the family's needs are, we have what we call our assessment services, and we also have our young child team, which is what Stephanie was referring to in regards to our mini team, which is also considered our developmental assessment services. And so that part of the clinic usually serves younger children. And then our outpatient psychiatric clinic for children and adolescents, there in our clinic, we serve children between the ages of 4, usually sometimes 3.5, but 4 to about 18 years old. And just want to clarify that age range as well. And then a little bit more about our program here at the outpatient clinic. We provide a range of both direct treatment and, like I said, evaluation services, depending on the age of the child and the needs of the family. The social work fellows do participate in direct treatment services, as I mentioned before. And they also, as Stephanie mentioned, participate in some of the evaluation process as well in assessment services, and learn about it, but also have an opportunity to also engage in that process of practicing that work as well. We do provide psychotherapy services. So our psychotherapy services include anywhere between cognitive behavioral treatments, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, parent management training, and family therapy. So parent management support or parent supportive treatment. And then we also provide different skills between problem-solving skills within our treatment work, play therapy, traditional psychodynamic psychotherapy as well. And then we also have group therapy that is also provided here at the clinic, and fellows are trained in group in this aspect as well, and have the opportunity to run their own group and provided support around that through supervision as well. And some of the groups that are provided here at the clinic are groups such as social skills group, relaxation groups, or like yoga groups have been done in the past, groups of identifying questions of sexual orientation or identity in general. So different types of groups that we usually have going on that fellows have the opportunity to either participate in or run their own group as well. And so the other important things of what you see on the screen is that the fellow does carry about 16 cases. So a fellow at the OPC track carries about 16 cases. And they also provide, the services can be provided either via telehealth. So we do have a Zoom access, and also in the office in person. So what for the fellows here at the outpatient clinic, and ICAPS, we are doing in-person therapy services. And so we are requiring that everyone does in-person treatment. However, if families are not able to access in-person treatment, we do have the option of telehealth. So I just want to clarify that as well. In addition, we provide, as I mentioned, a range of different domains of therapy. And so individual, parent, family-based treatment. And we collaborate as an interdisciplinary team. And so we have several providers of different disciplinary backgrounds. So psychologists, social workers, LPCs, LMFTs, and we all collaborate within the child's care. And here at our clinic, we also have APRNs and psychiatrists that we would collaborate and communicate to provide the best care to the families that we serve and the communities that we serve. And as Stephanie had mentioned, and I'll have Hector talk a little bit about what his experience is as a fellow here, we do provide 2 hours of individual supervision per week. That's part of the fellowship requirement as well. And so, Hector, I'm going to turn it to you. You could talk a little bit about your experience as a fellow here at the outpatient clinic in the past when you were here as a fellow.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing me on board. I don't think I'm going to be able to do the day-to-day justice as Stephanie did, because it's been a few months since I've been a fellow, and my memory is not not as great to think about, but I can add a little bit to that piece on the side of being a social work fellow on the outpatient side. I think that a lot of what Stephanie mentioned, and both Carolina and Bridget have mentioned with the descriptions of the different tracks, I think that the seminars, such as the interdisciplinary seminar spaces, are true for both tracks. We're actually in a lot of those seminars together, such as the case for like psychopharmacology, for non-prescribers, and those type of seminars. We share the spaces. So our day-to-day on that end looks very similar in being able to access some of those spaces on that end. Also, just adding to some of the things that maybe are different for outpatient fellows, we have, and I'm hoping this is still true for fellows, we have a space for the outpatient. Any new, I believe it's faculty or trainee that comes into the outpatient side has access to an outpatient seminar, which is a weekly seminar where really you get to be exposed to the new faculty, to the new interns, to the new trainees, and you share that space with people that are doing therapy as well, and even the ability to learn in your first year being out in the professional world, if that's the case for you. But you have that space that I think that it's usually, for me, it was on Fridays, and it ended the week very neatly, where I was able to speak about any type of challenges that came up. And it was a space that, being in a space with other New York clinicians and being able to speak to maybe the difficulties that came up during the week, it was just a very safe space to be able to speak about that. Just overall, my experience in the fellowship, I think that I'm very grateful for so many opportunities that I've had access to while being here. For me, I was purposeful about not jumping into the professional world right after my master's degree, just because I really wanted to fine tune my skills in doing therapy in Spanish for Spanish speaking families. And I really wanted to get a space where I would have the ability to still be a trainee, where I wouldn't be overburdened by the amount of cases that I had to work through. And at the same time, I had access to specifically a Spanish speaking supervisor who could maybe teach me, or who could fine tune those skills in being able to deliver Spanish speaking Spanish therapy to clients, because I do think that we mistakenly, or the field sometimes mistakenly, assumes that training individuals who speak Spanish, training them in English, they're going to be able to deliver the same quality of services in Spanish. And I think that it takes a while to get there. And for me, I was very purposeful in seeking a space where, for me, it was actually Carolina. Carolina was my Spanish speaking supervisor, where we had supervision in Spanish, and that when it came to my clinical language in Spanish, it grew even in just having those conversations in Spanish. I was also able to add to some of the tools that I was using with my Spanish speaking family. So that was an opportunity that I felt there was a lot of growth throughout my time in the fellowship. I also really appreciated the flexibility and the individualizing of the fellowship program for each fellow. I'm gonna maybe defer to see if this is the case when it comes to the second year project. Is that still something that, okay. So for the second year project, I really liked the even that opportunity about being able to focus on something that you're very passionate about. And for me, I was able to choose a topic that I really wanted to do further research on, that I had thought about when I was in my master's program, but giving me a space again where I wasn't overburdened by the amount of cases that I had, and I could still focus on developing something that I wanted to research and do a little bit of more work surrounding. So even having access to that time frame, to being able to focus on something that you're passionate about in your second year here. Some people choose just to specialize in a certain area of practice. I also specialized in the trauma side of the Child Study Center, but you can also choose to do a project that may be related to your specialization area or may be completely different. And I think even in that, it opens doors for future presentations. Now, as faculty, I've been able to actually present parts of my second year project that started in the at the social work fellowship. I've been able to present it in different places that I've gathered, even at the National Latinx Social Work Conference, more recently in Seattle. So it really opens doors, and it kind of propels you professionally. And I think the last piece that I will add is that it really fine tunes also your shaping the way that you advocate in any space, right? I think, as we all know, there's no space that is perfect right now, and that's also the case for Yale. But I do think that it gives you the opportunity to really build community with the people that are supportive of you in this type of environments. And it gives you the possibility to reflect on what's important for you to advocate for in the clinical spaces. I think that everyone brings contributions that are important to be highlighted in our clinical spaces. And so being able to kind of develop that voice, that advocacy voice on my end, was something that came in this space, and I feel like I've added a lot of layers to my advocacy just by being here and being part of the fellowship.
Thank you so much, Hector, for giving that just awesome summary about your experience as a fellow and then now faculty as well, and here at the Child Study Center. So thank you. And also thank you for covering the second year project. as well, because I think you covered it very nicely in the ins and the outs of how it's also been beneficial to you in the way that you've grown as well in your profession. So thank you for connecting that as well. I do want to also say that just because I saw a question in the chat about if we have a preference or if there's specifically a preferred preference for bilingual clinicians or bilingual fellows. And I just want to be clear that our fellowship here at the Child Study Center and the outpatient clinic and in ICAP, we do serve diverse families and are committed to recruiting applicants from diverse backgrounds. And we, I did see there was a specific question about just different languages that we might offer here at the clinic. And we welcome anyone from a diverse background, diverse languages that you speak. We also do have translator services as well here on site. And so we provide clinical therapy with translator services or in the native language of the family preferred if there is a clinician that can provide that language. So I just want to clarify that as well. And Bridget, I will hand it back to you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So I know we have about probably like 15 minutes, and we can maybe get more into the nitty gritty of the fellowship itself. I saw a lot of questions coming up about all of the all of the details. So Carolina, I can start with just some of the broader strokes, and then if you maybe want to talk about the curriculum and some of the expectations, would that be helpful?
I think we can give a brief overview about that. Absolutely.
So the fellowship program, it is a 2-year program, and there is one fellow hired for the ICAPS program and one fellow hired for the outpatient track each year. So overall, there will be 2 folks that are able to come. So each track only has one, but it also is set up so that there's a 2nd-year fellow, so you kind of have like a mentor and a counterpart who's been here for a year who can help you and kind of supports. See, one of the questions is around interviews. We are doing all of our interviews online this year.
Yes.
And have for the last several years. So the interviews will be all done online, and they're going to be taking place in March, I believe.
The interviews will be taking place in February.
February, okay. Yeah. So they'll be in February of this year, and I know that it came up, but the deadline for the application is January 5th at midnight. Lots of in-depth information is available online in terms of the application process, but it does include sending us a CV or a resume, your most recent transcript, a list of courses and training relevant to clinical work, 3 letters of reference, one of which from a field instructor, and a clinical assessment, which is a de-identified narrative that includes presenting problem history, current presentation, diagnostic formulation, treatment goals, and intervention approaches recommended for the client. And so all of that comes together. Will be you'll send all of that to us as one packet, and then you'll later be followed up with, and those folks that are going to be interviewed will be contacted. Interviews will be set up, and then sounds like I think people are going to find out in March if the interviews are in February.
Yes, so those who do apply for the fellowship and are invited for an interview, you will know between mid to the end of, so you would know between the end of January to early February, because interviews are happening at the end of February, around the end of February.
Okay. These are all good questions. We do work with transgender youth. We work with everybody and kids that are, we're not specifically working with kids that are kind of gender expansive, but we work with everybody who gets referred, and that is a fair chunk of the population are trans kids and adolescents. And that's something that I think too, you can always specialize in or learn more about while you're here, because we have lots of people that do work in that field that you could connect with.
I think specifically, even in regards to, there was a question about some curiosity in regards to the application process. And so, Bridget, you were talking a little bit about that process. And one of the things that we would highly recommend for everyone is to follow all the directions on the website that we have. We have on our website specific steps and instructions around our application process. And we also have the contact information of who you can reach if you have specific questions about the application as well and the process of the application. And I also just wanted to say too that there's I'm getting kind of this question about preferred qualifications, and really the social work fellowship here, we are looking for social workers who've completed their MSW degree from an accredited university and who are interested in becoming leaders in clinical social work and really interested in deepening your knowledge of clinical work with children and families from diverse backgrounds. So that's what I would, in regards to that question, that is what we're looking for in regards to qualified candidates for this fellowship.
Yep. And in terms of, I'm seeing there's one about supervision hours counting for clinical hours. So the supervision hours that you have for individual supervision do count towards clinical licensure in the state of Connecticut. And I believe the goal is that by the time that you finished the 2-year program, you will be able to take your test for your licensed clinical social work qualification, which in Connecticut means that then you're able to practice independently.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you have any insight into the interview process specifically, like how long it is? Is it multiple rounds? Any details at all that you could share?
Absolutely. So at this moment, the interviews are virtual. It's a 1-day process. And so the candidates that are qualified candidates would be invited for an interview and would interview with different individuals within our faculty in a group format. And so that's what our interview process consists of at this moment. There's also an opportunity to meet the fellows as well, the current fellows of the fellow and that are participating in the fellowship at this year during the interviews.
Just in the last couple of minutes, do you have any just generalized, and this is also for Stephanie and Hector, who've been through the application process themselves, like any advice you have? Because we know a lot of the challenge is just going through the actual application process and multiple steps. So any advice you have in how to make one a strong candidate for this role, and in terms of how they articulate their strengths and experience?
So one of the things that's really important is to answer the questions clearly. So it's a long form, like the application, there's several parts of the application. So it's important to read through all the parts of the application and answer very clearly. And review, have others look at your work as well, I think is really important. And there's, like I said, we have up also our senior administrative assistant, Ann Santello, who usually also is really great about answering questions specific. If people are stuck on a question, or if they're stuck in the process, she can absolutely help with that as well. And you can also reach out to us and meet individually or request to meet with us as well. Because I think every individual might have different questions about their own application, their own process, to make it seamless for them. We don't want it to be a barrier for anyone to complete the application. And so we're happy to also support and help with any questions as well in the process.
I think there's 2 questions left in the chat, on the Q&A, if anyone wants to take it.
Are we able to have a second job or do private practice at the same time as this fellowship?
So fellows are full-time. It is a full-time fellowship. So that's it's a 40-hour commitment. It's a 40-hour a week commitment. And so there's no restrictions on whether or not you decide to have other job opportunities at the same time. However, you do still have to meet all the requirements of the fellowship within that time frame, the 40 hours that you have in that week, that commitment. That's a great question in regards to how many people are invited to an interview. So typically we invite to our interview between 8 to 10 people every year.
Actually, I would like to hear from, before we close off, Hector and Stephanie about what their plans are post fellowship.
Great question.
That's an amazing question. I would love to know what my plans are. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, okay. I wasn't kidding. I don't know. I think coming in, I knew I wanted to work with children, and I knew I wanted to have my work center around grief and trauma. I also thought, though, that I wanted to come in doing like this outpatient, one-on-one work, but in-home work has completely shifted so much for me. I think I have such a newfound appreciation for what it means to really what engagement is with the family. Just a more holistic view on what that therapeutic alliance is. And so, yeah, I think my wheels are turning right now. I think I have 1.5 years left. I'm surrounded by great mentors, good support system that I can reach out and ask questions to if need be, or just advice on what I want to do. I've seen fellows take their path. I've seen private practice. I've seen, move into another state. I feel like I've heard of everything. And so, to me right now, it's not so much a question of like, can I do it, or do I have people who can support me if I choose to do it, but more so of like, what is it that I want to just, dedicate my life to, or at least these next couple of years to. But yeah, the options I feel are there, right? So I know Hector, you can probably speak more because you're living it, you're in it now. So yeah, passing that along.
Yeah, no, I think I'm post fellowship, so in some ways I'm actively, doing what I'm gonna be doing afterwards. But no, I think for me, which is an option if you're part of the fellowship, I decided to stay on as faculty. I thought that what the Yale Child Study Center has to offer with its resources, with its community, I think it was enough for me to find a space here. I often think about next steps. It's usually even now as faculty, what are next steps, and I think a lot of pieces from that I learned in the fellowship and how the fellowship helped shape me professionally. I continuously think about in what ways am I gonna impact the field, or am I gonna make the changes that I want to see in the field. And for me, part of that is research. So I always contemplated possibly doing a doctorate degree to be involved in research, but I always think that if you're gonna go into specifically a PhD program for any type of research related to clinical services, you need to have that experience in order for that to impact and inform your research. And that's really why I wanted to do this fellowship primarily. And I'm also thinking about everything that I've learned during my time doing clinical work, specifically doing clinical work with immigrant families, Spanish-speaking families, and how am I going to use that to impact the future research that I want to do. So the next steps is hopefully, go into a doctorate program after my time as faculty, and think about the way that I can impact our field in ways that are not going to only be in the micro, which I love and I enjoy my clinical work, but that are also going to be in the macro side of it.
Thank you. I actually think that's a great way to end the session. So thank you for joining us.